Hi, I'm Jamie Kahl Miller of Pandora Astrology. I'm an astrologer in private practice for 33 plus years in the San Francisco Bay Area. Today, we're going to talk about Venus and Juno retrograde going on here in the spring of 2025. Along the way, I'm going to show you this transit in motion. I'm going to talk all about what Venus and Juno mean, what it means when they go retrograde, and what this means in the signs that they're traveling through this time. I'm also going to show you birth dates that are particularly impacted and even some birth dates that are supported by this transit. We're all going to be going through a Venus and Juno retrograde relationship retrospection together. So let's get started. So you probably have a lot of questions, and I'm going to answer them right now. What is Venus? What is Juno? What does it mean when they go retrograde? What does it mean when they are doing a transit? How is that different from your natal chart? And how does it feel? So, first of all, Venus and Juno are astrological archetypes that you will find in your chart. Venus is the goddess of love and beauty, social connection, friendship, and erotic romantic relationship. Juno overlaps with that a lot, but has her own distinct meanings. Juno is the asteroid goddess of committed relationship, marriage, partnership in all its forms, both personal in terms of living together, co parenting, spousal relationships, but also professional, as in business relationships, business partnerships, and businesses that work off a relationship model, such as consultancies, also legal counsel, and even therapy. All of these are Juno style businesses. So, Venus and Juno in your natal chart have really important information to give you about your relationships. Venus tells you about your type to fall in love with, the sort of person who is super attractive to you and who you might pull into your life because you want to be more like them. Your Venus sign is actually your own capacity, it lives within you. And when you express your Venus sign, you're kind of shining a romantic light on yourself and attracting somebody who matches that quality so that you can get into a relationship with them. So you might say your Venus sign makes you more lovely. Juno in your natal chart is your type to marry, your type to engage in a committed long term relationship with, again, whether that's personal or professional. Juno is also a social maven, a networker, and a matchmaker. So your Juno sign will tell you something about your style for how you engage socially, both with other individuals and also with a group. So, what is the meaning of retrograde, also called retrogradation? This is a time period when a planet is moving backwards in apparent motion as viewed from the Earth. Now, astrologers know that this is a visual illusion based on our perspective here from Earth. However, it is a measurable phenomenon. And because it is a measurable phenomenon, astrologers have been able to measure it and track it over the centuries, over the millennia, and have built a body of knowledge around its meaning. Because the planet is traveling backwards, there can be a feeling during its transit that we're stuck in our forward progress. We have to slow down, back up, look inward, look backward, and we're kind of blocked from going forward until the retrogradation is done. So, what this means relative to Venus and Juno is that this is a relationship retrospection period. And that's true for both Venus and Juno. And so, when we find ourselves in a time period where there is retrogradation of Venus and Juno going on in an overlapping time period, how much more are we pressed to introspect and retrospect about our relationships? So, because Venus is more generically social and more about the warm feelings that you have for someone, whether that's erotic and romantic towards a partner or just friendly as you might have towards a friend or an acquaintance, Either way, those feelings, those experiences can feel blocked or tangled or slowed down or backed up. And you may find yourself having to look at the history of this social connection that you're examining. Like that friend. How long have you been friends? Why are you friends? You might find yourself really examining those kinds of things. And you might even choose one particular relationship in your life to examine during this Venus retrograde. But it does go deeper than that. Because, yes, Venus has to do with love and romance and sexiness, but underneath that, there's a deeper layer, which is about self love and your sense of your own lovability. So you may find yourself questioning that. You may find yourself asking, am I in this relationship because it's good for me? Is it good for my self esteem? Do I feel loved and lovable in this relationship? And you might also be asking yourself, do I really love this person? Does this love that I have with them feel authentic? And is it really good for both of us? So during Venus retrograde, you might want to look deeply into these things and also make some fixes, make some changes. That doesn't have to extend to ending the relationship. It might, but it doesn't have to. So don't be nervous. Now, Juno, remember, is about committed relationships. So when Juno goes retrograde, we find ourselves looking into the deeper, more long term connections that we may have going on right now or that we've had in the past. I like to say that when these goddesses go retrograde, you find yourself looking at your relationship history or the history of a relationship that you're in. And you'll be asking yourself similar questions with Juno that you might ask yourself with Venus. Is this relationship healthy? Is this good for me? Does this support my social life at large? Does this help me feel more connected to my partner, to myself, to the society that I'm a part of? And if it doesn't, what are the fixes necessary? Now, you might be asking yourself, what if I'm single? What if this just doesn't sound relevant to my life right now? Good question. And there's never a bad time to do a relationship retrospection and introspection. And Venus retrograde transits, especially, although Juno retrogrades also, are famous for being that moment that the ex from the deep past chooses to contact you on the phone or by texting or Facebook or whatever way that you are reachable. Sometimes somebody from the past pops out, either literally or just in your own mind. Now, this is not necessarily a sign that you should get back with that person. Maybe it's just a sign that you're thinking, you're ruminating about, you're mulling over the health of that relationship and asking yourself, how can all of my relationships of the future go better based on what I learned there? And if that does involve going back to dating somebody that you've been with before, that might be just the right thing. So, next thing I want to tell you about is what is the timing of this year's Venus and Juno transits? I'm going to show you a diagram of that right now. So, here we see the milestones of the cycle of Venus and the cycle of Juno. Every cycle begins with what might be called a rapture day, which is to say, this is the day when Venus conjuncts the sun while Venus is moving forward and quickly. So Venus is doing direct motion, the sun is also doing direct motion, and they catch up with each other and they travel together for a little bit. This is a day when relationships can move forward with few obstacles. It's a really good time to marry or propose or meet somebody or ask somebody out. This being the beginning and end of a Venus cycle, this one begins here and ends here on another relationship rapture day, which initiates an additional cycle. As you can see, the Venus cycle is about a year and a half long. And the Venus retrograde period, which lasts from here, March 1st to April 12th, is about 6 weeks long. So, really, Venus is usually traveling forward, usually traveling direct, which means that usually relationships proceed forward. They move along, they develop. But when Venus is retrograde, relationships can get tangled up. We can feel like there's obstruction. We can feel like we're under pressure to look within or look back at the history of our relationship or our relationship history to understand what is going on and maybe make some fixes. Venus's retrograde span this year is 24 of Pisces to 10 degrees of Aries. This is the date when Venus enters that retrograde span. Traveling along, it enters 24 degrees Pisces. Continuing along forward, it arrives at 10 degrees Aries, slows down, and turns retrograde or backwards. It then backs up all the way to 24 degrees of Pisces right here, April 12th, and then proceeds forward again to 10 degrees Aries, and then leaves and finishes the cycle here in January of 2026 by forming another conjunction with the Sun while Venus is traveling direct. Each of these milestones has particular meaning. As I said, a relationship rapture day is a really good day to start something. And you can feel pretty good about doing that because things are likely to move along at a good, swift pace. Now, once January 27th arrives, we are entering the zone, the span of the upcoming Venus retrograde period. And so it's in this little zone right here between January 27th and March 1st where you might start to feel like Venus is tugging on your attention, like your relationship maybe needs some attention and things are kind of grinding to a halt. And then when March 1st arrives, you might feel like they have ground to a halt, like there is a pivot that you need to make. If your attention has been on your life outside of yourself, maybe you need to look inward. While Venus is retrograde, it will then make another conjunction with the Sun right here, March 22nd. And I call this Relationship Clarity Day. This is the point during Venus retrograde where Venus gets lit up by the Sun, or scorched is another way to think of it. And so you can attain a clarity on your relationship as to what is wrong with it, what needs fixing, what the solution is. But you're unlikely to be ready just yet, right here, March 22nd, to know what to do about it. You're not ready to take action on that yet. Venus continues retrograding until April 12th, where it turns direct. And at this point, you begin to realize, it's time to come out of the deep, dark cave of myself and to apply some of what I've learned from this inward journey to my relationship in my actual life or to social connections that I have generically. Remember, I said that you don't have to be in a relationship when Venus or Juno goes retrograde in order to learn from it. Sometimes the retrospection is about a relationship that you had years ago. Now, Relationship Resolution Day is pretty awesome, in my opinion. This is the day when Venus leaves the span that it was traveling through, leaves 10 degrees Aries, and is done with its retrograde span for the year. So at this point, you should feel some sense of resolution about whatever you've been learning and exploring in your own heart and mind or with your partner. And you should have an idea of what you want to do about it and what you want to put into place. At this point, Venus is speeding up and will take on its normal speed. Then when it reaches Relationship Rapture Day here, the cycle draws to a close. A new cycle is born, and it is a really good time. I would say for about weeks to a month surrounding a Relationship Rapture Day is a really good time for forming new relationships or cementing relationships that you already have, upgrading them perhaps from an interest to something more serious. Let's compare all of this on the Juno diagram. So the Juno transit begins with a commitment rapture day, commitment being the core relationship theme of Juno, and that was back in October of 2024. Juno travels along and is in the sign of Scorpio when it enters its retrograde span here in December 21st of 2024, and passing into its retrograde span right here at 16 degrees of Scorpio. Juno travels along until it comes down. Juno continues forward, but slowing down until it turns retrograde. And that pivot happens here, March 19th of 2025, after Juno has entered just a very small way into Sagittarius, only up to 1 degree of Sagittarius. Juno then turns retrograde and backs up, will back up all the way to 16 degrees of Scorpio. But in the meanwhile, we have Commitment Clarity Day, much like Relationship Clarity Day, but really more pertaining to committed relationships, which may be legally contractual, by which I mean a marriage that is sanctioned by law, a business relationship, a business partnership that is contractual. And if you've ever known anybody or been somebody in a business partnership, you might know that it does feel an awful lot like a marriage. So, May 14th is the day when you can get a great deal of clarity about this committed relationship and what it needs, what it's capable of, whether you want to stay in it, whether your partner wants to stay in it, and what is the best way to take it into the future. I'm a firm believer in the permanence of relationship, by which I mean if there's anybody that you've ever loved, there's a bond there that's formed that is real. It may not be physical, it may be metaphysical, but it is real and everlasting. The relationship itself may need to change forms. Sometimes people find that in order to love each other better, they need to get a divorce. Or even to go back to liking each other even a little bit, maybe they have to get a divorce. The relationship can go through permutations even though the bonds remain. And if you have a child with someone, that is also a permanent bond. So, this is a day of clarity on what changes the relationship might need or what it needs in order to deepen and strengthen. So, as Juno continues retrograde, it comes to its end of its retrograde period right here, July 10th at 16 degrees of Scorpio. And that will feel like a pivot, much as the retrograde turning day did. The direct turning day also feels pivotal, like a shift in perspective. Perhaps you have been mulling things over and introspecting about your relationship. And then on July 10th, you feel like, oh, had enough of that. I've done all the thinking and feeling about this that I have to. I now am ready to come out of the deep, dark cave of myself and bring that clarity out into the world. So then we come to Commitment Resolution Day, where Juno leaves its span at 1 degree Sagittarius. And then finally, Commitment Rapture Day again. And remember, Commitment Rapture Day can be a really good time to deepen the relationship, to commit further to the relationship. And if you can arrange a wedding on or near any of these rapture dates, that's great. Next, I'm going to tell you, what does it mean that Venus is traveling through Pisces and Aries? What does it mean that Juno is traveling through Scorpio and Sagittarius? By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please like it right now and share it also while you still remember to do that. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please like it right now before you forget. Share it widely with your friends. You can subscribe to my channel, Pandora Astrology, here on YouTube for more good stuff like this. If you like self-educating about astrology, you'll find a lot of deep, rich information here. You can also see me for a session on Zoom or in person in the San Francisco Bay Area to learn about how to handle the changes you're going through with this transit or any other. Here's where you can set that up, and this link is also in the description below. So what about Venus and Juno in the signs that they're moving through? Because this really matters. Venus is traveling through Pisces and then Aries, and then retrograding back into Pisces again. And the interesting thing is, Venus is exalted in Pisces, does really, really well in Pisces with very little effort. And yet Venus struggles really hard to succeed in Aries because Aries is its sign of detriment. Venus in Pisces can be so loving, so flexible, so affable, so relatable, charming, and also compassionate and so wonderfully warm. However, the pitfall of that is that Venus in Pisces can be too flexible sometimes, charming in the way that a chameleon can be. Venus in Pisces is very good at putting on the guise of what it is that the other person wants to see, and that can become a pretense. Now, Venus in Aries has the antidote for that. Venus in Aries is guileless, is transparent, is honest and direct and forthright. But Venus in Aries can be more than a little bit hot-headed and demanding and self-centered and can run the partner over with your demands. So here's where the real clue is. While Venus is in Pisces, look for the ways that you need to soften, the ways that you need to bring more compassion into the relationship, more empathy and understanding, whether that's for your partner or for yourself, but also have a care for your boundaries. And when Venus moves into Aries, give your relationship an infusion of honesty. Stand up for yourself if you have to. Be more direct and bring clarity where there may be confusion in the relationship. Now, when it comes to Juno, Juno is going to spend much more time during its transit in Scorpio than in Sagittarius. Juno just tiptoes barely into Sagittarius and spends very little time there overall. So mostly this is about Juno and Scorpio. Juno and Scorpio wants most of all to form deep, passionate bonds. However, those can be the bonds that tie and choke. So it's really important to be aware of controlling, manipulative behavior in yourself or in your partner. Is somebody in the relationship being overly possessive? Is somebody being overly controlling? Does somebody have a double standard? Does one of you want the other one on lockdown? Is there somebody in the relationship who is having trouble trusting even when their partner behaves in a trustworthy way? There's nothing like Juno in Scorpio for pressing you to examine the deeper, more intimate aspects of your relationship. Scorpio is about intimacy, full stop, but that takes several forms. There's emotional intimacy, there's physical intimacy, and there's financial intimacy. Emotional intimacy means really sharing yourself with your partner. Can you do that? Do you feel free to do that? Do you trust them? Do they trust you? Do they share themselves with you? Are there areas of life where you can't share with this partner? And there's no sign like Scorpio for wanting to have it all in one basket, all of the eggs. But very few actual real life partnerships are that way. We'd all like to have an all purpose partner who's good everywhere, but few of us get that. And so adjusting to the partner that you have might be the use that you put this transit to. So emotional intimacy, physical intimacy. Physical intimacy is, of course, sexuality, your sex life, if this is a relationship where that happens, and not a business relationship, for example. At least I hope not. So this transit could involve a re-examination of your sexual engagement with your partner and an exploration of that, perhaps leading to deeper, intimate connection. And then there's financial intimacy. And this one definitely shows up in business partnerships because it involves trust and feeling secure. So this might be the arena where you find yourself doing some work this time around. Now, Juno does dip into Sagittarius briefly, so I'm going to speak to this. Sagittarius is so different from Scorpio, where Scorpio is about, just getting all intricately, intimately bound up with another person super intensely. Sagittarius is about freedom and space. So Juno in Sagittarius might be a time when you need to ask yourself, is there enough space in this relationship? Do both partners have a feeling of freedom and spaciousness and openness? Is there frank, honest conversation? Also, do you have fun together? Can you travel together? Is it a relationship with a playful aspect? So, if these things are not going well while Juno is traveling through Sagittarius, there may be some fixes that come up that you'll want to do. Okay, now I'm going to show you which birthdays are affected. And as I explain these birth dates and how to make use of them, I want to emphasize that if your birthday falls in any of the date spans, then you will undoubtedly feel this transit. If your birthday is here in any of these dates shown right here, you're going to feel the impact of Venus retrograde. However, if you find that your birth date does not show up anywhere on any of the slides I'm about to show you, it still may be the case that you're being impacted by Venus or Juno retrograde or both. And there is a reason for that. Probably something else in your chart other than your sun is being affected. It could be your moon, it could be your own Venus, it could be your rising, it could be your Jupiter, who knows what it could be. But something in your chart may be affected by this Venus retrograde or by Juno retrograde. And if you feel like you resonate with these transits, then there's probably something there worth exploring. So if you are a Pisces or Aries born March 14th to April 1st inclusive, then Venus will absolutely be conjuncting your sun during this transit, and you'll feel it pretty strongly. If you're a Gemini or a Cancer born June 15th to July 2nd, then Venus is going to be squaring your sun and you'll feel it. Similarly with Virgos and Librans born September 16th to October 3rd, and Sagittarius and Capricorn folks born December 15th to January 1st. Gonna feel this. Now, birthdays impacted by Juno retrograde will mainly be Scorpios and Sagittarians born November 7th to 23rd, Aquarians and Pisceans born February 4th to 20th. And remember, these dates are inclusive. Taurus and Gemini folks born May 5th to 22nd, and Leos and Virgos born August 8th to 24th are going to feel the Juno transit primarily. So these dates that I've given you so far are the dates of birth dates of people who are going to experience this transit in a stressful way. Venus or Juno is poking you and prodding you and bugging you and irritating you and saying, hey, there's something wrong with your relationship or with your relationship life or with your capacity to love and be loved, and now is the time to fix it. However, it is also possible to experience these transits in a harmonious way. These are the birthdays that are actually supported by Venus retrograde. So if you are born in any of these birthday spans, you're going to feel Venus retrograde, but in a more supportive, harmonious, flowing, easeful way. If you're born in these dates, then your relationship life can change for the better, but it doesn't have to be so stressful. You may have to forward it because it isn't going to charge up to you and grab you by the collar and make you change. But you can utilize this transit to effect a wonderful, powerful change in your relationship life if you choose to. So this applies to you if you are a Cancer or Leo born July 16th to August 2nd, inclusive, a Scorpio or Sagittarius born November 16th to December 2nd, a Capricorn or Aquarius born January 14th to 30th, or a Taurus or Gemini born May 15th to 31st. This is an opportunity for you to learn to feel loved if that is something that's hard for you, to learn to give love if that is something that's hard for you, or even to learn to stick around for love if that's hard for you. These are the birthdays supported by Juno retrograde. So these are great birthdays for those of us who can learn to engage in committed relationship, to stick with committed relationship, to manage committed relationship in a way that works in your life. So on So I'm talking about Cancers and Leos born July 8th to 24th, Pisces and Aries folks born March 6th to 21, Capricorns and Aquarians born January 6th to 21st, and Taurians and Geminis born May 6th to 22nd. You can spiff up your marriage or your business partnership, and it doesn't even have to hurt or really be a very big deal. It's just a gentle upgrade. But you may have to make it happen because, as I said before about Venus, Juno is not going to come along and grab you by the collar and force you through a retrospection. But you may find that it happens naturally without a lot of fanfare. And now I want to point out something you might have already noticed, which is that there are some dates that overlap, that are being supported, transited by Venus, but supported by Juno, or maybe transited by Juno, but supported by Venus. And that's what I'm going to show you next. So if you are a Pisces or Aries born March 14th to 21st, then you are being impacted by Venus retrograde, but Juno is helping. It has to be these exact dates, though, and they are inclusive, but notice that it's a smaller date span than I gave before on either the Venus or the Juno pages. Now, similarly, if you are a Scorpio or Sagittarius born November 16th to 23rd, then you are being impacted by Juno, but supported by Venus. So, what that means is Scorps and Sages are really being forced to look at their committed relationships and who they are in their committed relationships, but they're getting a little help from the goddess of love and beauty, Venus. And what this also means is that Pisces and Aries folks born from March 14th to 21st are being made to look at what is love? What is love for me? Venus is putting them through their paces. What is love for me? Am I lovable? What happens when I act like an unlovable person and somebody tries to love me? That doesn't go well, does it? But Juno is helping. So, those of us who feel unlovable, who happen to be married, may find that our spouse gives us some gentle reminders that we are lovable. And that can be super sweet. Now, meanwhile, there are two other sets of signs that will experience nothing but support from both Venus and Juno. And so if you are a Cancer or Leo born July 16th to 24th, and if you are a Capricorn or Aquarius born January 14th to 21st, then you're getting harmonious transits from both of these relationship goddesses, which means that these transits are not going to be so harsh, so tough on you, and they're just going to provide you some gentle nudges that will allow you to better your relationship. And the fact that you're sitting here watching this video right now, and you're going to go into this time period self-aware, could make all the difference between you completely missing out on the benefits of this transit, or instead harnessing the benefits of this transit and gently, without drama, making all of your relationships better. If you've watched a couple of my videos and you're thinking about seeing me for a real reading, I want you to know that it doesn't have to break the bank. I'd love to see clients like you who are exploring astrology and want to know more about your best life using the power tool that astrology is. Yes, the initial session with me is expensive. It's $299 for new clients. But once you get into my ecosystem, you'll find that you'll never pay that much again, unless you want to. There are many ways to get discounts, and one of the best is by joining my newsletter list, where you can receive notice of discounts and deals as they're coming out. Being on my newsletter list also means that you get videos like this first. So now I'm going to show you this transit in motion with its timing. So here we can see how this plays out in time. I've set this chart for June 4th of 2024, the day when Venus conjuncts the Sun at the end of the previous cycle and the beginning of the current one. And you can see that they're here together in 14 degrees of Gemini. The next thing that's going to happen is that Juno is going to have her commitment rapture day in October on the 16th. So we're going to watch time move along and the Sun come into that conjunction with Juno. So there they are, and the Sun just hopped over Juno. These two are conjunct in 23 degrees of Libra. The next milestone occurs in December when Juno enters its retrograde span at 16 degrees of Scorpio. Finishing out Libra, moving into Scorpio, coming up to 16 degrees. So here Juno has entered the span and is in the degree that she is going to retrograde back to. Let's continue to watch as Venus then subsequently enters her span in January. So coming up on January 27th, and here's Venus having entered her span at 24 degrees of Pisces. The next thing that happens is that on March 1st, Venus is going to turn retrograde in 10 degrees of Aries. And there she is, about to turn retrograde, and boom. There's the little red RX symbol that means Venus has turned retrograde. The next milestone is Juno turning retrograde, so watch this. And there it is, pretty shortly thereafter. It happened actually on March 19th, but here by March 20, we have Juno going retrograde, and Juno is in 1 degree of Sagittarius. Notice that Venus has already started backing up towards the Sun, and Venus and the Sun are going to connect in the relationship clarity day right here, March 22nd to 23rd. Venus and Sun connect, and that's this right here, March 22nd, relationship clarity day. It happens at 2 degrees of Aries. Meanwhile, Juno, which moves more slowly, has only backed up a little bit in her retrograde motion. Her commitment clarity day is coming May 14th, but Venus is going to do something else before that even happens. And again, it's because Venus does everything faster than Juno does. Juno's general periodicity is 4 years. It takes Juno 4 years to travel all the way around the whole zodiac through whatever retrograde period it's going to go through and return to where it was before. Venus takes about a year and some to do that. So the next step is Venus turning direct, April 12th in 24 degrees of Pisces. There she is retrograde, boom, there she is direct, 24 degrees of Pisces. So I just want to show you this again. There she is moving retrograde, crossing the Sun, and I'm going to show it to you again now forwards. So she backing up, meeting up with the Sun, turning direct, and now she continues onward. So the next milestone is May 14th, Commitment Clarity Day. Juno retrograde opposes the Sun. Now, Venus is always near the Sun in our skies, and do you know why that is? It is because Venus has an orbit around the Sun which is smaller than the Earth's orbit. So Venus will always be traveling around the Sun, close to the Sun from our point of view. Juno, however, has an orbit that's bigger than Earth's. So when Juno is retrograde, it will always, always, always be opposite in the sky from the sun. So now we're going to watch Juno being opposite to the sun travel backwards while the sun travels forwards until they come into a precise opposition. And that is Commitment Clarity Day, May 14th. And it happens right here in 24 degrees of Scorpio for Juno, opposed by Sun at 24 degrees of Taurus. Now, the very next day, Venus is going to leave its span. Boom, there it is in 10 degrees, leaving its span. Relationship resolution day happens. Then the next thing Juno does is to go direct right here in July on the 10th. So watch Juno. It's going to continue retrograde until July 10th. So there's Juno retrograde, and boom, no more retrograde. Juno is now direct. The next thing that happens is that Juno is going to travel through the end of her span and leave her span on Commitment Resolution Day, October 7. Let's watch that happen. Traveling along, entering Sagittarius, and then leaving on October 7. Now, if you're experiencing a little moment of surprise because you thought that was going to be October 4th, I just want you to know I have just noticed the inaccuracy of this diagram and fixed it. And so earlier in this video, it says October 4th, but the correct date is October 7th. The year then ends December 16th with another Commitment Rapture Day. The sun is going to catch up with Juno and conjunct it on December 16th, right there in 25 degrees Sagittarius. The sun has hopped over, and look, Venus is right here too. It's a triple conjunction in Sagittarius. Venus is going to catch up with the sun on January 6th, just a few days later. Like that, 16 degrees Capricorn. So Venus and Juno will end their cycle together, just as they executed their retrograde journey together. While these transits are going on, watch for changes in your own relationships, in your relationship life. Look also inside your own heart and mind for changes to your own relationship nature. What do you need from relationships? What do you give to relationships? How can you make yourself a more attractive partner? How can you maintain your relationships and keep them clean and vibrant? And also, are there other people in your life around you who are going through relationship changes? Can you give any of them a hand? Don't be afraid when Venus or Juno takes you by the hand and leads you into the dark, unknown corners of your relationship. You can emerge with a much more intimate, loving relationship than you had before. And you can feel like more of yourself in it. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to Pandora Astrology's channel, and tell your friends about me. I'm available for consultations near Berkeley, California, in person or on Zoom anywhere in the world. You can learn from me via my Patreon portal in a really friendly, warm, small classroom atmosphere. And until next time, I'll see you around the cosmos. Bye-bye.